How to become a polyglot. Did you know that candidates with a high level of English in their countries receive salaries between 30 and 50% higher than other candidates with similar skills but no knowledge of English? When it comes to learning new things, the best we can do is listen to the advice of an expert on the subject. When it comes to learning languages, Matthew Yulden is the answer. Known as the language chameleon, Matthew is fluent in 9 languages and understands nearly a dozen more, who defines himself as a passionate language teacher, student, counselor, and partner, linguist with over 10 years of experience. Experience in teaching and studying languages in general. Yulden is currently a didactics editor specializing in language learning, and a PhD student in applied linguistics at the University of Leipzig. His specialties are language learning, acquisition, learning, translation, and interpretation studies, speech training, language and policy planning, intercultural competence, and relationships, minorities and minority languages. Upon comment from one of his coworkers about his difficulty understanding a single additional language, Matthew highlighted these 10 tips for learning languages. Take note. 1. Clearly define why you are doing it. It may seem obvious, but if you do not have a good reason to learn another language, it is very likely that in the long run, your motivation will run out. Whatever your motivation, when you decide to learn a new language, the really important thing is to commit to the maximum. 2. Find a partner. Matthew learned several languages together with his twin brother Michael, who learned his first edition when they were just 8 years old. Matthew and Michael, or also called the Super Polyglot brothers, acquired their polyglot superpowers based on the traditional rivalry between brothers. We were motivated, and we still are. We push each other to keep going. If my brother realizes that I am doing more than him, he gets a little jealous and tries to overcome me. I think that is because he is my twin, I am the original, and the same in the opposite sense. Even if you don't have a brother or sister to accompany you on your language learning adventure, having a partner will push you to keep trying a little more and stay motivated. I think it's a fantastic approach. You have someone you can talk to and, in the end, that's the basic idea behind the process of learning a language. 3. Talk to yourself. If you have no one to speak to in the language you are learning, there is nothing wrong with speaking to yourself. It may sound like you're crazy, but actually speaking to yourself in a language is a good way to practice, if you don't have anyone else to do it with. This can help you keep new vocabulary or new phrases fresh in your mind, so that you will feel more confident when you have to use them with someone else. 4. Talk to people. If your goal from the beginning is to carry on a conversation, you are less likely to get lost in textbooks and manuals. Talking to people will keep the learning process relevant to you. You are learning a language so that you can use it. You are not going to talk only to yourself. The creative part of the matter is being able to put the language you are learning into a more general and useful daily arrangement, whether it's writing songs, trying to talk to people, or using it when you go abroad. But you don't have to go abroad. You can go to the Greek restaurant at the end of the street and try to order food in Greek. 5. Have fun. Use your new language in any creative way. The Super Polyglot brothers practiced Greek by writing and recording songs. Think of a fun way to practice your new language. Do a radio show with a friend, draw a comic, write a poem, or try to speak it with whoever you can. If you can't find a fun way to practice your new language, chances are you are not following tip number 4. 6. Act like a child. Try to learn like children do. The idea that children are inherently better students than adults is proving to be a myth. New research cannot find a direct relationship between age and the ability to learn. The key to learning as fast as a child can be to simply take on certain childish attitudes. For example, a lack of self-awareness, a desire to play in the language, and a willingness to make mistakes. We learn by making mistakes. When we are children, it is normal for us to make mistakes, but when we are adults, mistakes become a kind of taboo. An adult is more likely to say, I don't know, rather than, I haven't learned that yet, I can't swim, I can't drive, I can't speak English. Being seen making mistakes or even having difficulties is a social taboo that does not affect children. When you learn a language, admitting and accepting that you don't know everything is the key to achieving growth and freedom. Forget your adult inhibitions. 7. Leave your comfort zone. Not being afraid of making mistakes means being prepared to put yourself in potentially embarrassing situations. This can be a bit scary, but it is the only way to develop and improve. No matter how hard you study, you will never speak a language if you don't put yourself in that situation. Talk to foreigners in their language, ask directions, order food, try to make jokes. The more times you do it, the greater your comfort zone will be, and the greater the ease with which you will face new situations. At the beginning, you are going to find difficulties. Maybe it's the pronunciation, or the grammar, maybe it's the syntax, or maybe you don't understand the sayings. But I think the most important thing is to try to develop that sense of language. Every native speaker has a sense of their language, and that's basically what makes you a native speaker if you can make that language your own. 8. Listen. You have to learn to listen before you learn to speak. Any language sounds weird the first time you hear it, but the more you hear it, the more familiar it becomes, and the easier it will be for you to speak it. We are capable of pronouncing everything, we are just not used to doing it. For example, the strong R sound does not exist in the variant of English that I speak, but when I was learning Spanish there were words with that strong R, like dog or meeting. For me, the best way to learn to master that sound was to hear it constantly, listening to it, then try to visualize or imagine how it is supposed to be pronounced, since for each sound there is a specific part of the mouth or throat to use. 9. See how other people express themselves. Different languages demand different things from your tongue, lips, and throat. The pronunciation is both physical and mental. One way, although it may sound a bit strange, is to carefully observe others as they say words that use that sound, and then try to imitate it as much as possible. Trust me, it may be difficult at first, but you will get there. It's actually an easy thing to do, you just need to practice. If you cannot observe and imitate native speakers live, watching foreign movies or television in their original version can be a good substitute. 10. Immerse yourself. You have already made the promise, you have committed. And now that? Is there some kind of correct way to learn? Matthew recommends the maximize 360 degrees approach. No matter what tools you use to learn the language, the important thing is that you practice each and every day. I tend to want to absorb as much as possible early on, so if I'm learning something, I take it to the extreme and try to use it throughout the day. As the week progresses, I try to think in that language, try to write it, and even speak to myself in that language. For me, it's really all about putting into practice whatever you're learning, whether it's writing an email, talking to yourself, listening to music, or listening to the radio. Surrounding yourself and immersing yourself in the culture of the language you are learning is extremely important. He remembers that the greatest benefit of speaking another language is being able to communicate with others. Being able to carry on a simple conversation is an incredible reward in itself. Reaching such goals will soon make it easier for you to stay motivated and practicing. It's always in my head that it's really about adapting the way you think to the way you think in that language. Obviously, there is not only one way in which a speaker of Spanish, Hebrew, or Dutch thinks, but the trick is to use the language to construct your own idiomatic reality. Extra bonus, relax. No one is going to be bothered by you speaking in their language even if it is wrong. If you start any interaction with "I'm learning the language," And I'd like to practice. Most people will be patient, supportive, and encourage you to keep going. Even if there are approximately 1 billion non-native English speakers in the world, most of them will prefer to speak their own language if they have the chance. Taking the initiative to enter someone's language world will make it easier to deal with, and put them in a more positive disposition. It is clear that you can travel abroad speaking only your language, but you will get much more out of it if you can feel comfortable in the place you are, being able to communicate, understand, and interact in any situation you can imagine. And this is all about how to become a polyglot. We hope you have found it interesting. Now you just have to put these tips into practice. It's your turn.